Take a second and look at the laptop sitting on your desk, or maybe the phone you've got in your hand right now. Have you ever actually stopped to think about how much power that little device holds over your life? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to trace the absolutely terrifying history of computer viruses, and we'll explore how these safe, everyday machines that we implicitly trust can, literally in the blink of an eye, turn into our absolute worst nightmares. It's a pretty chilling thought, isn't it? I mean, we store everything on these things, our memories, our finances, basically our entire lives. But what happens if your personal computer suddenly stops taking orders from you and instead starts taking orders from some faceless criminal thousands of miles away? Today, we're diving into what is essentially the true crime story of the digital age. We're going to track exactly how malicious code evolved from these quirky, harmless little pranks into full-blown weapons of mass disruption. Section 1. Unintended Beginnings. All right, let's kick things off by jumping in the time machine and heading back to the 1980s. You know what's really fascinating here? The very first PC threats weren't actually cooked up by evil masterminds sitting in dark, smoky basements. They were totally accidental, or honestly, created with incredibly good intentions. Our timeline starts in 1986. Now, this was peak floppy disk era, those clunky plastic squares you literally had to hand to a friend to share a file. And then shortly after, we hit 1988, right in the absolute infancy of the internet, when it was pretty much just researchers and the military. But during both of these massive milestones, the groundwork for global digital chaos was being laid down completely by mistake. Picture this. It's 1986, and two brothers in Lahore, Pakistan, Basit and Amjad, create this piece of medical software. They were brilliant programmers, sure, but they quickly realized people were pirating their hard work for free. So to punish the pirates, they wrote a little snippet of code that hid on the floppy disk. If you booted up an illegal copy, it slowed your computer to a crawl and flashed this ominous message: "Welcome to the dungeon." But here's the crazy part. The brothers meant so well that they actually included their real names, the physical address of their shop, and 3 actual phone numbers so infected users could call them to get a cure. Obviously, floppy disks travel. Before they knew it, the brothers were fielding angry middle-of-the-night phone calls from people in America and Europe. And just like that, the very first PC virus had gone global. What's so interesting to me is the wild contrast between these two early pioneers. While the brain virus was basically just a local anti-piracy tool that got way, way out of hand, the Morris worm 2 years later had a completely different origin story. Robert Tappan Morris was a grad student at Cornell, and he really just wanted to measure the actual size of the early internet. So he wrote a program designed to hop from computer to computer, just quietly logging its presence. But he made a tiny little coding error. Instead of just visiting once, the code aggressively copied itself over and over on the exact same machines, hogging all the memory. That one simple mistake accidentally crashed roughly 10% of the entire internet at the time. We're talking networks at Harvard, MIT, and even the Pentagon, just completely taken offline. Section 2. The Era of Destruction and Speed. Okay, so as we move into the late 90s and early 2000s, that early innocence, yeah, it's completely gone. We transition away from those harmless little accidents straight into absolute, uncontrollable digital destruction. To fully grasp the sheer terror of this next era, you've got to understand something called the BIOS. Think of the BIOS as the absolute core operating system of your physical computer. It is the spark of life. It tells your motherboard how to wake up before Windows even tries to start. Without a working BIOS, your computer honestly doesn't even know it's a computer. So in the late 90s, this virus called CIH, famously known as the Chernobyl virus, comes along and just totally changes the game. It would sneak onto your machine and just hide there silently, waiting for one very specific date. April 26th, the anniversary of the real-world Chernobyl nuclear disaster. And when that day hit, it didn't just mess with your Word documents. No way. It dug deep into the system and completely overwrote that BIOS we just talked about. Suddenly, millions of computers all over the world were instantly turned into dead, useless pieces of metal and plastic. It proved without a doubt that just a few lines of code could cause massive physical hardware destruction in the real world. Fast forward to January 2003. Hackers are starting to realize that if you want to cause widespread chaos, you don't necessarily need incredibly complex, heavy code. You just need pure speed. Enter the Slammer virus. This thing was shockingly tiny. We are talking just 376 bytes in size. To put that into perspective for you, that's roughly the size of a single short text message or maybe a tweet. But man, because it aggressively hunted for and exploited unpatched Microsoft servers, firing off thousands of copies of itself in literal fractions of a second, it created a global traffic jam of epic proportions. It took a mere 10 minutes, just 10 minutes, to completely paralyze global networks. Bank of America ATMs went totally dark. Airline ticketing systems collapsed and flights had to be grounded. The entire country of South Korea basically lost its internet access. It's a brilliant, terrifying illustration of this new reality. The size of the code didn't matter anymore. The speed of the infection was absolutely everything. Section 3. Fraud Traps and Zombie Armies. As time went on, hackers evolved. They figured out that completely destroying computers was loud, it got them caught, and worst of all, it wasn't really profitable. So instead, they pivoted. They started using viruses to trap unsuspecting users and silently build these massive, invisible digital armies. Imagine it's 2004. You sit down to search for something, but instead of typing Google, your finger slips and you hit the J key for that second O. Well, that simple everyday typo sent millions of people straight into a brutal trap. This fake site would just bombard users with pop-ups, exploiting a known flaw in how Windows XP handled image files, and without you even clicking a single thing, it secretly downloaded a fake piece of antivirus software called Spy Sheriff. This nasty program would lock up your screen with these terrifying flashing red warnings, cut off your internet connection so you couldn't even search for a fix, and blatantly demanded that you pay for the full version to unlock your PC. It was straight up extortion. Amazingly, the actual company Google ended up buying that typo domain at an auction in 2022 for $270,000, just to make sure people stayed safe. Now, if Spy Sheriff was a loud, aggressive mugger in an alleyway, the late 2008 Conficker virus was a highly trained master spy. Conficker spread incredibly quietly, lurking in the shadows of USB thumb drives and jumping through unpatched network flaws. And once it was inside your system, it stealthily threw up defenses, literally blocking your computer from accessing real antivirus websites or even downloading standard Windows security updates. It silently and methodically infected over 9 million devices across the globe. It breached the UK Ministry of Defense, and it even forced the French Navy to ground an entire fleet of fighter planes. Suddenly, your personal computer, your coworker's computer, even classified government servers were all secretly stitched together into a massive botnet. A zombie army, just sitting there waiting for a single, whispered command from some unknown master. And then, researchers discovered a specific date buried deep within Conficker's code. The entire cybersecurity world, we're talking governments, global media, tech giants, everyone basically held their breath in absolute panic. All 9 million of these infected zombie computers were mysteriously programmed to wake up and receive their master's final orders on April Fool's Day 2009. So what was going to happen? Were they going to wipe out the global banking system? Take down the power grid? Nobody had a clue. Well, April 1st finally arrived. The whole world watched, and that massive 9 million strong zombie army woke up just to download a cheap fake antivirus program to try and scam regular people out of a few extra bucks. Seriously. Despite the sheer global panic and Microsoft actually offering a $250,000 bounty for the hacker's head, the mastermind behind Conficker was never caught. They just vanished, like a ghost in the machine, completely proving that a single attacker could hold the entire world hostage and absolutely get away with it. Section 4. The malicious ransomware nightmare. So here's the crucial takeaway. Hackers were learning. They realized they could directly monetize these infections with chilling, ruthless efficiency, and that completely ushered in the terrifying modern era we're in now, the era of ransomware. By 2013, a nasty piece of work called CryptoLocker perfected this brutal extortion model. It wasn't about breaking your computer hardware anymore. It was about taking your actual digital life hostage. You'd accidentally open a sketchy email attachment, and the virus would silently scan your hard drive for the things that mattered most to you: your precious family photos, your critical work documents, your personal tax files. It didn't delete them, though. Oh, no. It locked them behind incredibly complex military-grade encryption. And then, a ticking countdown timer would pop up right in the middle of your screen, demanding a ransom, usually paid out in untraceable Bitcoin. You were totally trapped between losing your life's digital memories forever or paying off faceless criminals. That three-step process right there, it laid the exact blueprint for the ransomware plagues that are still terrorizing our hospitals, our schools, and our local businesses today. Section 5. Inescapable horror. All right, let's bring all this dark history together and look at a modern experiment that is designed purely to showcase digital psychological terror. Now, thankfully, the No Escape virus isn't a real cyber attack secretly roaming the internet. You actually have to go out of your way to download and run it. It was put together by a well-known YouTuber named Enderman as an experimental horror simulation. It's basically designed to answer one very specific question. What does a total, inescapable loss of control actually feel like on a modern machine? If you're actually foolish enough to execute this thing, No Escape straight up torments you. First, your computer forcibly restarts, but instead of your normal, comforting background, you get greeted by this blinding, terrifying red screen. It generates dozens of fake user accounts completely out of nowhere, and it forces you to use the password death just to log in. Once you finally get to your desktop, you'll find that all your files have been renamed into creepy messages telling you that your computer isn't yours anymore. On certain dates, your desktop icons will literally physically run away from your mouse cursor so you can't even click on them. And eventually, the virus just decides the game is over. The screen starts to visually rot, literally degrading right before your eyes, until it forcefully corrupts the entire operating system, permanently destroying the software installation. Which brings us to a final, pretty chilling question. I mean, we started back in 1986 with two brothers leaving their actual phone number on a floppy disk. But today, we live in a world where a snippet of code the size of a tweet can ground global airlines, and a single misdirected click can instantly encrypt your entire digital life. As our day-to-day lives become more and more completely reliant on these incredibly powerful yet profoundly fragile machines, how secure is our digital reality, really? It's definitely something to think about the next time you boot up your screen. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, stay safe out there.